Episode 802. I'm your host, Dan Clemency, your constitutional warrior fighting your right just to be an American. It is May 18th in the year of our Lord 2017. Remember, we are a hyphen-free, PC-free zone. God is still in control, and he does love you. And I am broadcasting live from the Hemlock Studios, almost got that wrong, in the sunny central Susquehanna Valley in the great Keystone State, and it is heating up out here. It's actually supposed to be up again, or about 90, 91 degrees again today. We're not used to that yet, but bring it on, bring it on, bring that global warming on, folks. Oh, man, I'm sitting before and broadcasting on the great John Wayne desk. And, folks, if you've looked at the news sites that I look at, and I'm not in an echo chamber. I was on Facebook last night discussing some things with an individual who is defending Indivisible Guide and wondering why I was even on there if I thought they were an anti-freedom group, which they are. They're absolutely an anti-freedom group out there, folks, because if you've watched any, and I should get some of these, try to archive some of these videos of these town halls and maybe piece together a compilation. I'm still trying to learn to do video editing. As you may or may not have noticed, one of my show advisors, Dave, did really notice it in the video yesterday when he watched the show yesterday, which I gotta apologize for yesterday. Yesterday, did yesterday go off without a hitch? See, that's why the week is going by so fast. It's going by so fast. One of these days this week I think it was might have been yesterday, we had a hitch. Yeah, it was yesterday, and I couldn't broadcast the show, so I had to redo it. I recorded the video, and then I uploaded that to the website. I uploaded the audio to Blog Talk Radio, so everything was late yesterday. I didn't finish up the show notes yet. I got to get those. All I got to do is put a couple things on them and put the show notes up for yesterday's show, and I'll have today's show done before I go to my doctor's appointment this afternoon. But if you noticed, I am at the bottom of the screen here. You know, I got Dan Clemens Constitutional Warrior, and I should be careful about what color shirt I wear, but that's okay. I think you can still see that. I have my VidMe, which I'm starting to upload videos on VidMe, and they're just a short, like exemplar and tentis videos. I'm actually putting up there. Support me on Patreon right there, and then talking about subscribe. That's for YouTube. Little note about YouTube. You know, everybody, the sky's falling with YouTube. Well, my keen intellect and observations, you know, when I observe things and deductive reasoning, things like that. I watch a lot of YouTube in the evening when my wife's not around. She does not like watching YouTube. But I get informed on YouTube. I also watch videos from, liberals, progressives, anti-freedom folks like Antifa, some of these other groups like Common Cause and Let America Vote, and I'm lumping Indivisible Guide in with that. So I watch these videos to find out, what they're saying, why, try to figure out why they're saying it, which that's very hard because they're mostly running on emotions, not logic and reason. So, you know, I watch all those last night. So getting back to the YouTube, what they call the YouTube apocalypse out there, I've noticed some of the videos that haven't been showing advertisements on their videos are starting to show up again. I don't know if they know it or not, but they're starting to show up on their video feeds. Especially Philip DeFranco and a couple other ones that I watch. They're actually, I think Mike Dice actually had an ad running previously to his video. So and this was always in the back of my mind. And this is no different than the stock market, no different than any other free market endeavor you might want to get into out there. There's going to be ups and there's going to be downs. Now, what happened with YouTube was a market correction, and you can liken it onto a market correction. I have some investments, and they've taken a hit of late, and it's no big deal because I know what's happening. There's day traders out there that are trying to make a killing, and what they do, and these day traders, I'm not a day trader. I don't have that much money. I don't have that much time to sit there in front of a computer and watch stocks all day long. But what they do is they hold, you know, thousands, if not tens of thousands of shares of stock in different companies. And when it goes up 10, 15 cents a share, what they do is they see a trend there, so they'll sell. And then when they sell, and enough people sell, the stock prices come back down. Well, sometimes they go, because of the correction, sometimes they go down so fast they go down below what they originally held it at. So then they buy again at that lower price before it starts going up again, and they made a pocket full of money. And same way with YouTube. They had what they call the YouTube apocalypse. And like I said, this is only anecdotal. I just started noticing these on my favorite channels that I watch, especially the quote-unquote conservative channels on YouTube. But what happened was that there was an outcry, emotional. It was emotional outcry. There's no two ways about it, because nothing what YouTube has done has made sense. It was all driven by emotions. But they were telling advertisers your ads are going on to sites that, you know, are full of hate speech and whatever the anti-freedom progressive narrative was of the day. So these advertisers started pulling back advertisement real quickly without, in my opinion, without investigating the shows that their ads were actually showing up on, which you would think that would be an easy thing to do. Maybe not. I'm not really sure. I don't even know if there's a company out there that would actually look into these things and actually put an honest assessment on these different YouTube sites. Now, some of these sites, I couldn't do it. Some of these sites are so profane, and I don't know why they think they need to use profanity when they're on YouTube or VidMe or any other. Minds.com's another one. Like Minds.com is sort of like an alternative to Twitter, but I don't know why people, when they get, you know, they think they're broadcasting on the internet, that they, you know, it's the Wild West for profanity, as it were. So I honestly, I don't know if I could actually sit there and watch these videos and give an honest assessment, because I couldn't get through some of them. I was watching one I was interested in last night, and the first 4 sentences, it was laced with some very vulgar profanity, and I backed out of it. I got out of the video. I'm just not going to expose myself to that. But I have been noticing, I said it's all anecdotal, I have been noticing ads popping back up on conservative sites that were quote-unquote demonetized. And so it hasn't really scared me. It's bummed me out a little bit, but it hasn't really scared me off of YouTube, because they have to be feeling the financial pinch too. Even though they're going to a TV platform, a paid platform, I think it's like $35 a month they're looking for. And if I want TV for $35 a month, I'll go to my internet service provider. I can get the lowest tier, which isn't a lot, but I can get the lowest tier and get all the major networks and stuff like that for around $35, $40 a month. So, I don't know where YouTube's going. I don't follow their business model. All I know is they took a huge bath, and we're coming up on the end of the second quarter for reporting, And I'm just wondering, because this all happened like at the end of the first quarter, starting into the second quarter of the fiscal year for businesses. And so I just wonder how much of a bath they took financially with all these advertisers pulling out. And I think the advertisers actually feeling a pinch too, because they're not getting the traffic that they were. Because I see an ad on there, I absolutely go and check it out. It's something I'm interested in. Today I Found Out videos is one of my favorite ones to watch on there, because they do a good research on there. Wheeler, I think, is the guy's name that hosts that, or is actually the face of that. And I can't exactly remember what the link was now. I wrote it downstairs. But it's an online video classrooms on a whole host of subjects. And you pay a subscription fee. And he was saying that he was getting into photography. So he took their online photography classes. And he said he learned a lot. And so that interested me. And that's honestly, even on his videos. Now that's a sponsor that's actually sponsoring him directly outside of YouTube. And I see that actually starting to happen more and more in the YouTube and VidMe universe, where they're actually sponsors of these shows. So, but getting back to the YouTube apocalypse, I think that's correcting itself, just like any other market correction. I think somebody, honestly, I think the board of directors at YouTube need to step in, and some heads need to roll there, because I think they did a very dumb thing business-wise when they demonetized a lot of these very, very successful channels out there that were bringing. Mike Dice was just celebrating on his YouTube channel yesterday. He's up to 1 million subscribers. I mean, that's a milestone. I mean, I don't even know what percentage that would be with mine. I'll tell you right now, I only have 15 subscribers, and the last three came in within this last week and a half. So for me, that's a pretty substantial growth, and so I'm still getting my feet wet, as it were. I just have my toes in the water, as it were, right now. And one of the criticisms I heard talking to some individuals on Facebook last night over in the Indivisible group, they went over and checked out my YouTube channel, and they checked out my VidMe channel, and he was laughing about and he didn't say anything about my YouTube, but he was laughing about my VidMe. Well, you only have one upvote on your videos over there. And I'm like, yeah, I just started over there. I'm trying to get to the point where I'm actually producing at least a video a day for Exemplar and Tentis, my vlog on YouTube, and then I'm sharing those over on VidMe. And I said, even my YouTube, he was saying, how little viewership I have on my YouTube. And I'm like, I just started, and Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, I have to go back in my archives here. I've only been doing live streaming to YouTube for a month or two. 2 months at the most, I think. I have to go back and look at the dates on the videos. But, in the universe of YouTube, I'm barely a newborn babe when it comes to broadcasting on YouTube. And I've already, like I said, I got 3 new subscribers in the past week and a half. My views for those 15 subscribers, since I've actually, and I had some of those before, I was putting short videos on YouTube before I started live streaming, there's well over 1,300 views. Okay? It's not a lot. I'm not bragging about how much that is. However, if he didn't, I said, well, I have a pretty good following over at Blog Talk Radio. I look at my stats, it's called my dashboard. I look at my stats every day, how many downloads and how many live listeners, and I get way more downloads than I get live listeners from, like, I'm on Stitcher, I'm on iTunes, and I can go in and figure out which ones are getting the best. Some people have the Blog Talk Radio Direct app, and they listen to that. So that all adds up, and I am consistently over 100 every day. Except sometimes on Sundays. Okay, and sometimes on Sundays and Saturdays. The weekend's kind of fickle this way, but sometimes I have my best download days on Saturday and Sunday. I've had upwards of almost 400 downloads in a single day. And this is starting to become consistent with Blog Talk Radio. And this goes to a bigger story that I'm getting into today that's been developing and keeps going. I accused this young man of being very superficial in his analysis of me and in his February 24th with my first live show. So I've only been doing it, what, a couple months, right? February 24th, March, April, going on 3 months. Wait a minute, February to March, March to April, yeah. Going on 3 months I've been doing this. And like I said, in YouTube time, Dave, thanks for getting that stat up there for me. In YouTube time, like I said, I'm barely a newborn babe. Folks, go look at my videos. I just yesterday, while I was scrubbing, this was yesterday, while I was scrubbing the computer with malware and stuff, I got a piece of malware in that was messing with my, excuse me, my displays, and shut them off and turned them back on and really messed everything up. While I was doing that, I did a little research. Been trying to do research and been reading, and I finally found a site that was helping me out to put overlays on my videos. And yesterday was the first day I got that up there. I mean, I've been doing this since full-time, live shows on YouTube since February 24th, and yesterday was the first day, the first day I got these overlays that you'll see down to the bottom of the screen. They're not to me, they're not intrusive. Some people might complain about it, but you know what? I'm the boss, and I'm going to keep them up there because, like I said, they're not intrusive. They're down at the bottom of the screen. I just want people to realize that, I am on VidMe, YouTube. I have a Patreon account if you want to help me out that way. That's fine. And I know I need to push that a little bit more on Patreon, but it's this superficial looking at something is part of the problem today. And this is what I told this young man in the Indivisible group. Hasn't answered me back yet. And this is one thing that I want to stress here. When we're discussing things with people, I don't care what it is, religion, politics, mom's apple pie, okay? You never, ever personally attack somebody. You don't talk about how their hair makes them look this way or their face looks that way or their weight makes them look this, because that doesn't help. Doesn't help at all. Okay? And I try not to engage in that. I really do. I consciously try not to engage in that. Now, sometimes my dander gets up and my anger gets the best of me, and I really, really have to concentrate when those times come. But when we're talking with folks about these things, we need to not only do we need to be in depth in our analysis of things, we also need to be factual and tell the truth as much as we can. And if we don't know the truth of a subject, and this has been driving the show all week, and this drives me nuts, you have these news outlets in the mainstream media that are reporting stuff like it's actual factual news, and they're sycophants in the anti-freedom movements out across the plains, the fruited plains, that are sopping this up and regurgitating it as if it was fact. And it absolutely is not. As a matter of fact, they don't even go out and try to vet their sources. I have a video here from Alan J. Lichtman. He's a professor at American University in D.C. He's got a book out talking about impeachment, and he says, and the name of this article here, he didn't write it, but Bob Seska over at Salon.com, cool your jets, liberals. Impeachment of Donald Trump is a great idea that is totally not happening. So this Alan Lichtman thinks it's doable and it can be done, and yet, now I haven't read his book yet, and what I've been doing, folks, because of the cost of paper books and the room for them, I've been getting certain books downloaded to my Kindle. So I've got this book. I'm going to read it just to be fair to Professor Lichtman. But in all honesty, I don't think these people vet these guys. This guy is a progressive liberal. He makes speeches at very progressive liberal organizations like the Southern Poverty Law Center. That title sounds innocuous, but they are a totally leftist, progressive, anti-freedom group that he's lectured for. There's some things, I got this video I'm going to share, there's things he said in there that aren't factually correct when it comes to the Constitution. there has been people calling for the impeachment of Donald Trump before he even took the presidency, before he was even inaugurated. And I have this story. I'm not going to really get into it because I think it's nonsensical. It was put forth on Daily Wire. That is Ben Shapiro's news website, by James Barrett. A New York Times conservative columnist calls for Congress to impeach Trump through the 25th Amendment. And that talks about mental incapacitation, health issues and stuff like this. And I've criticized folks before about this because of all these armchairs, psychiatrists and psychologists and psychiatrists, you know, that never personally sat down and spoke with Donald Trump. Everything they see is anecdotal. Everything they see, especially when they're watching the news, and this is where they're getting most of their information because they're not right there at the White House following Donald Trump around and observing what he's doing. All they're getting is the pictures that the lamestream media wants put out there. And so they're being armchair psychiatrists and psychologists that are making determinations that in any other situation, if they did this, they would be held in contempt for malpractice. Pure and simple. So, you know, we got stories coming out like this. The impeachment of Donald Trump has been going on since before his inauguration. It was just, matter of fact, they were talking about there's no way he can become president because we can impeach him the next day back during the campaign, if you remember accurately. So, this is a narrative that's been building up all week here. And like I said, getting back to my little conversation with a gentleman on Facebook, you know, I told him, I said, we're way too superficial on our initial analysis of folks. He was, there's a lot of friends of mine that like posting things on, you know, that I follow on Facebook. Now, I'm not going to go through, unless I see one. I cannot look at every single posting on my Facebook. It's just nigh on impossible. When I come across one that has foul language or something in it, I hit the hide button. And if it starts happening too much, I will send a direct message to the person. I said, look, I said, you can post this on yours. But I said, please remove me from these postings of yours. I like to follow you on certain things, but these particular postings are offensive to me. Can you please not show them to me? Whether they do or not, it's totally up to them. And I haven't unfriended anybody yet because the ones that happen are only few and far in between. But he was judging me on all the different things on my timeline. And, you know, I got after him a little bit about that. I said, you can't judge me on that. I said, I have no control over what people post unless someone, like you said, unless someone gets totally offensive on there. And I'll tell them about it if they still don't want, you know, I'll give them a chance. 3 strikes, you're out. After the 3rd strike, I'll unfriend you. So I don't see that, and people on my timeline doesn't see it. And more times than not, when this has happened, I've done it like 2 or 3 times. I've direct messaged folks saying, look, I really don't appreciate these because of the vulgarity and the profanity in them. And honestly, they didn't think about it. They were just reposting. They thought it was funny to them. They're reposting. I said, you got to be careful because of who you're friends with. I said, you might be, and not that you can't do it because it offends me. You have every right under the First Amendment. Your free speech rights go beyond government. They're actually, I can't infringe on your free speech rights and you can't infringe on mine. And, you know, so if they want to do that, that's fine. And I'm not saying, you know, that offends me like I'm a snowflake, you know, that type of offense. It offends my Christian sensibilities. And I'd rather not see that. It's not that I'm a wilting flower. If I see it, I'm going to pass out. Or, you know, or if I see it on my timeline, that I'm afraid I'm going to go to hell for even looking at it on my timeline, or it ends up on my timeline. You know, and this is a narrative that the anti-freedom groups out there and folks that support them, they absolutely will do this. Kim and her minions, my Facebook antagonists, they do this all the time. Well, this is on your, you know, these far-right conservative blog spam, that's what he calls it, blog spam sites. And I said, prove it. Prove to me that these are blog spam. Well, all you got to do is go read it. And I said, no, you made the accusation. You need to prove it. And that was the end of that conversation. You know, and this is one thing you can do with the anti-freedom folks out there is make them prove their accusations. If they call you a racist, tell them to prove it. Don't apologize. You know, the vast majority of folks in this country right-thinking Americans, I'm not talking about politically right, I'm talking correctly thinking Americans are not racist. And just because you call somebody a racist doesn't make them a racist. And so my thing to folks is don't get Kafka trapped by these anti-freedom folks. You need to make them prove their accusations. And 9 times out of 10, when I ask people to prove it, they either won't or can't. And that's usually not the end of it, but it really slows them down a lot. Because they don't want to take the time. Again, we go back to the superficial stuff. They don't want to take the time to do the investigation. He asked me a question. How do you know that these websites that you're following, these blog spam websites that you call news sites, and how do you know that these other ones that he supports, like Mother Jones, Slate Salon, stuff like that, aren't, and Washington Post and the New York Times are spreading fake news? Now, I got an article here I want to get to, the anonymous sources of Washington Post and CNN fake news, by Daniel Greenfield over at frontpagemag.com. It's a very interesting article. So I know I rambled on a little too long there. But these are important things, folks. And I titled the show because this is something that's really getting me frustrated, especially this Professor Lichman at American University in D.C. Where was he during the Obama administration? And I have saved on my Facebook, I'm trying to do a little reading on it, this blogger, and I've seen him before show up on Facebook. Throughout the whole Obama administration, he cataloged every wrongdoing, whether it was just a simple lie or like the gun running, with Eric Holder to Mexico, all the way through his 8 years. And he's actually, I was looking at this, and this guy's dedicated. I don't have his name in front of me. I'll try to share that with you on Free for All Friday tomorrow. Over 1,300 instances during President Obama's administration where he lied or did something that rose to the level of high crimes and misdemeanors. And some of it didn't, but there was still lies. There was sharing with Russians. I have a story in here about that. We asked these Dems why Obama offering intel to Russia was okay. And this is by Carrie Pickett. She writes over the Daily Caller. That's fun. It is. If it happens to the folks that they support, we see no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil. But if it happens to their political opponents, then the barn door is wide open, and we can do anything we want. We can say anything we want, no matter how malicious it is, or no matter how false it is. And I titled the show today, "Progressives in the Constitution." They don't have a clue, and they don't. Progressives absolutely do not have a clue. Today's show is not that it's being brought to you by, but this is the official drink of the Dan Clemens Show, Rocky Mountain High Brands. I just bought some of the lemon and coconut. It's an energy drink, but it's low calorie, so it's only got 2 grams of sugar for the whole can. And it's an energy drink, which I try not to drink too much of those because of the extra caffeine in it. And actually sending off an email asking if they can get the lemonade and the iced tea, the black iced tea, in the low calorie. Because I think there'd be a big market for that. But anyway, that's the official drink of the Dan Clemens Show. And just a disclaimer with that is I do own stock in the company. So the stock's been going up and down. It's a penny stock. So I bought into it when it was around 7 to 8 cents a share, and it's been hovering around there, going up and down. It was up as high as I think 24 cents, but that only lasted a few days because all the day traders just dumped millions of shares of it and made a killing on the stock. And that's what happens to especially the penny stocks, but with the day traders. All right, I don't want to get into that anymore. Today's daily Bible reading comes from 2 Samuel chapter 22, verses 31 through 37. And the reason why I'm sharing this with you is a friend of mine on Facebook shared these sites. This one was, what is your Old Testament Bible verse? And mine came up 2 Samuel 22:33. And so I put this whole thing down from 31 to 37 because I think it all fits together in the same vein here. He says, and Samuel says, as for God, his way is perfect. The word of the Lord is proven. He is a shield to all who trust in him. For who is God except the Lord? And who is a rock except our God? God is my strength and my power, and he makes my way perfect. He makes my feet like the feet of the deer, and sets me on the high places, and he teaches my hands to make war so that my arms can bend a bow of bronze. You have also given me the shield of your salvation. Your gentleness has made me great. You enlarged my path under me, so my feet did not slip. Sorry, folks. Allergies. Oh. Today's quote meal comes from Norville Hayes. It's hard for God to walk with a man who gets his mind made up to do things his own way. I would go on to say it's impossible for God to walk with that man or that woman. Our short Bible study comes from Alan Shannon over at biblicalproof.wordpress.com, taking God at his word and nothing more. And this is what I preach on this show when we talk about the Bible, and this is what I talk to people about, that I use the Bible and nothing but the Bible. The Bible interprets itself. The Bible gives more than enough proof that it is from God. From Genesis to the book of Revelation, more than enough proof that it is from God. And it's all we need. And there's been too many people out there who have been relying on too many other writings of men instead of writing on the pure word and truth of God. Oh, Dave is telling me in the chat room, man drives through crowd in Times Square, 1 dead, 20 injured. Again, have you know, real quick here, and I know this is only anecdotal, but have you noticed that a lot of these car events are happening in cities where they have strict gun control? I'm just saying. I have a 9mm, and the bullets I carry in that for personal defense will penetrate a windshield, or at least take a tire out. Not that I'm aiming for a tire. If someone's driving at me and I'm in the crowd, I'm going to be aiming for a windshield. I'm going to try to stop it or slow it down. But it like I said, it's only anecdotal. Dave, I don't know if you've actually noticed that or not, but most of these what happens with these cars and people getting run over are just in these cities. New York City is one of them that has some of the strictest gun laws in the country. Several injured as car hits pedestrians in Times Square. At least 13 people were injured when a car struck pedestrians in the New York Times. And this was posted just a few minutes ago. They didn't put a time on it. Come on, New York Times. But anyway, so that's happening in Times Square in New York City right now. So again, I might even make that into a short video to talk about, not that I'd like to do that, but to talk, like I said, it's I don't know if it's anecdotal or if that's the actual case where these things, and it's not. I don't think a lot of these are malicious. But I don't know. I haven't been tracking these all that much, and maybe I'll do some research on that and look at that. But with like over in Europe with the trucks and stuff like that just plowed through the market squares, that was an attack. Now some of these, the one down in Louisiana, that one there, they said the accelerator stuck, or they hit the accelerator instead of the brake. I know way too many people and that do this. On an automatic, and I don't know why they do this. They use the left foot for the brake and the right foot for the gas. And I'm like, you don't do that. You don't do that. That is one of the most dangerous things you can do driving. Yeah, Dave says they say it's not terrorism, but tell that to those in the crowd. And I think it's a little too early to tell and even if it isn't. Just could be some crazy person that's coming, and I'm not saying if a car's coming at me, I'm gonna pull my weapon and try to stop them that way, but with what's happening over in Europe is prologue to what's going to happen over here if we continue to allow terrorists into this country, if we don't shut our southern border down. This is going to start happening more frequency, and this is something that police cannot stop. Law enforcement, the government cannot stop these these type of attacks. If a terrorist wants to get in a minivan or a pickup truck or a cube van or something like that and drive into crowds, there's nothing's going to stop him. I'm sorry to say. All right, most of you know by now that Roger Ailes, of the former Fox News chief, has passed away at age 77. I'm not going to say a whole lot about that. The article I have out of McClatchydC.com is like a 9-page and went over his whole history and that. I'm not going to go through that with you. But my condolences go out to the Ailes family for their loss. And I went over the progressive blogosphere or newssphere on the internet, and so far it's toned down, but I don't know what it's going to be like in the next couple days with that. All right. This article here, let me see here. Cool your jets, liberals. The impeachment of Donald Trump is a great idea that is totally not happening, by Bob Cesca over at Salon. Don't get your hopes up about impeaching President Donald Trump. Sorry to be Debbie Downer during a week in which we all watched with semi-horrified delight at the increasingly speedy political suicide of Trump and his people. I can't, I read through the article. I can't go any further than that. Because this whole thing, and we talked about this yesterday, Mitch McConnell, I wish we had less drama from the White House. Well, it's not the White House that's doing this. It's the lamestream media that's pushing this narrative of all this drama. But no one complains about them. At least the politicos in Washington, D.C. aren't complaining about them. And this brings me to the video that goes along that was embedded in this article about impeachment with Mr. Alan Lichtman. He's a professor at American University. So let me get this set up here. I noticed if I don't use the fair use disclaimer, that my videos get smacked pretty hard for the fair use stuff. So, all right, I got this set up here. So this is Alan Lichtman being interviewed at CBC News, and so let's give this a quick listen here.
So, Alan, after you correctly predicted that Donald Trump would become president, he sent you a tweet saying, gee, thanks, congrats. He's probably not so happy with you now.
I'm waiting for his letter, or at least his tweet. And Mr. Trump, I have to tell you, there is a chapter in my book, The Case for Impeachment, called The Way Out. Because you were so gracious to me, I've given you some friendly advice on how you can avoid impeachment. However, I don't think you've paid much attention to it yet.
Well, we won't go there just yet. You've predicted he will be impeached, and you've suggested now there really is a case for this with the firing of Comey. What's the basis for that?
Yeah, it's not just the firing of Comey, of course. It's the lies that were issued by the White House in support of the firing of Comey. It's the fact that the firing of Comey came right after the devastating testimony of Acting Attorney General Sally Yates that the National Security Advisor to Donald Trump was a danger to national security because he was compromised by the Russians. It came right after subpoenas were issued to Michael Flynn and his associates, and it came right after, apparently, Mr. Comey had thought this investigation was significant enough to ask for additional resources. And Donald Trump himself admitted that he was thinking about the Russia investigation when he fired Mr. Comey. That's at least borderline obstruction of justice, and add to that the fact that the White House pretty transparently conspired earlier with Representative Nunes to derail the House investigation into possible Russian collusion. Putting it all together, and you've got a probable cause case for obstruction of justice, and there's only one way of dealing with that constitutionally. The framers, as I point out in the case for impeachment, put impeachment into the Constitution as a legal, peaceful, and orderly means of saving our democracy from a rogue president.
So you say that there's a lot of issues here, a lot of possibilities for building a case, but just back to Comey, you're saying now that this is a worse case than Watergate, and reminding us that it wasn't actually the tapes in Watergate that led to Nixon stepping down, that it was the firing of the special investigator Archibald Cox.
That's right. It was the Saturday Night Massacre in October of 1973, the firing of Archibald Cox that first of all turned public opinion against Richard Nixon. For the first time, a plurality of Americans favored his impeachment. And secondly, it was the firing that triggered the impeachment investigation that ultimately in the House Judiciary Committee would lead to the voting of 3 articles of impeachment against Richard Nixon, with more than 1/3 of Republicans joining in voting for at least one of those articles. And then, of course, to avoid what would have been certain impeachment in the House, Nixon resigned.
But do you see that happening? Do you see Republicans are in control of the House? Do you see that happening, of them calling for the kind of investigation that could lead to impeachment?
Well, I would start by calling upon every Republican in the House to do what so many Republicans did during Watergate.
But do you see that happening?
Patriotism over party. Yes, here's why I see it happening. First of all, if the Democrats stand firm, it would only take some 24 Republicans to shift. That's just 10% of Republicans in the House. And a Lichtman rule of politics is that for office holders, their prime requirement is survival. And if they see Trump as a liability, at least 24 could turn against him.
You mentioned that one of the cases for possible impeachment is lying. Remembering, I suppose, that Bill Clinton, that's what he was impeached for, was not his activities, but for lying about it.
He was impeached both for obstruction of justice and for lying under oath in a deposition that started a deposition in a civil suit. And Trump faces lots of civil suits. He has a history of inveterate lying, and he could well be caught in the Clinton impeachment trap. In the case for impeachment, I lay out 8 possible grounds, and one of them is lying.
So there are calls right now for a special prosecutor instead of Donald Trump appointing a replacement for Comey. People are saying there should be a special prosecutor. What do you think of that?
I think that is most misguided. I think that's the best way to save Donald Trump for the following reasons.
But that's what the Democrats are asking for.
And the Democrats need to read my book and listen to this broadcast. They're off on the wrong track. Let me tell you. Number one, Trump appoints the special prosecutor. Number two, Trump can fire the special prosecutor, just as Richard Nixon fired Archibald Cox. Number three, special prosecutors take years to do their work. The special prosecutor in the Iran-Contra case took over 6 years to issue his final report. The constitutional remedy here is not a special prosecutor. It is an impeachment investigation in the House Judiciary Committee that should be fully staffed, like the Watergate Committee, which had 44 lawyers and some 100 staff members. It would be conducted by another branch of government. It would be entirely independent of Donald Trump, and it would have the clout to keep Donald Trump from obstructing it.
So I'm going to ask you for another prediction. If he actually is impeached, which would obviously be a long process if ever it began, wouldn't Mike Pence become president? Are you predicting that?
Mike Pence would become president, and I am predicting that with one caveat. You know, the media has given Mike Pence a huge pass. You know, he lied about General Flynn. He lied about the reasons why Mr. Comey was fired.
Well, he says he was misled about Flynn.
I'm about to get to that. And the media says he was misled. We don't know that he was misled. That's a supposition on the part of the media. In fact, maybe he was part of this whole operation right from the start, and maybe he's in it as deeply as Donald Trump. We do not know, and an impeachment investigation needs to look at Mr. Pence as well. A vice president is no less subject constitutionally to impeachment than a president.
Well, these are some big predictions. People are talking a lot more about it. We'll see whether the Republicans are listening to you. Thanks so much, Professor Lichtman.
Thank you.
All right, folks, that was Professor Lichtman from American University in D.C. And I jotted some notes down here, and I had some of these before the show, but I jotted some of these notes down because I didn't want to stop the video while it was actually playing. One, he did not correctly predict President Trump would win. He was predicting the popular vote winners. And unless this commission on voter fraud finds a bunch of illegitimate votes for Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. So right there from the start of the broadcast, and he didn't correct her on that. From the start of the broadcast, he was lying. And I'm sorry. He was flat out lying about that. And he's lying about Trump did not appoint the special prosecutor. It's not his job. AG Rod Rosenstein was the one that appointed former FBI Director Mueller as the special prosecutor. Now, this goes back to the title of my show, folks. It really does. Sorry about that. It goes back to the title of my show. Progressives in the Constitution, they don't have a clue. And he was right when he talked about special prosecutor could take months, if not years, to get to the bottom of things. Okay? But this is what Democrats wanted. And I told a guy on Twitter, be careful what you wish for. They got their special prosecutor, and what I was telling this guy on, be careful what you wish for, is a special prosecutor might find something, unearth something, and report something in his report that the Democrats don't like. And this investigation could lead off in a whole new direction towards a whole new group of people other than Trump and his campaign and his administration. So I said, be careful what you wish for. Professor Lichman was absolutely right when he talks about the Judiciary Committee should be the one investigating this. They should be, fully staffed, and they have the subpoena power, the whole 9 yards to get to the bottom of this. But that's not what, again, that's not what the progressives in this country were calling for. And he likens Donald Trump to Bill Clinton in his lying. The problem is there's no proof that Trump has been lying yet. He claims that Trump has been lying in his civil suits and likens that onto Bill Clinton lying and obstructing justice. Bill Clinton was president at the time when he was lying and trying to obstruct a federal investigation into Monica Lewinsky and some of those happenings in the White House. And he lied, and that lie was absolutely to obstruct justice. Okay? There's no proof yet of a Russian-Trump collusion at all. Everything's supposition. Everything is, well, this high-ranking official told me. Let's get some backbone, guys. If you're going to leak something, stand up and be proud of it. Say who you are and get on with it. This deep state, and I was watching, I might have this video tomorrow, I was watching a video, Fox News video, where they're absolutely talking about all these leaks from the deep state. Okay? So, Professor Lynchman liking Donald Trump's civil suits to the federal investigation of then President Bill Clinton. Come on. Really? And you know what? I hate doing this. Honestly, I hate doing this because it makes me, people accuse me of being a Trump supporter, and I'm not. But I like to see a level playing field for everybody. And it has not been level at all. Our last administration, it was not level. This administration, as far as the news reporting and stuff like that, has not been level at all. So that's what I'm more mad about. He goes on to talk about Mike Pence. Well, he needs to be impeached too. And that's been something that has come up. But again, Mr. Lynchman, Professor Lynchman, has no proof. He's just supposition. He wasn't there during these conversations with Pence and Michael Flynn. He wasn't president at all. A lot of these people that are talking about these things and reporting about these things do not have the proof, the factual truth, to be reporting this as factual news. So even Professor Lichman is participating in this, I think, gross miscarriage of the free press. And all throughout that interview, most of his claims were unfactual, except for a couple of things about impeachment with the with regards to the Constitution, now, like I said, I downloaded, it wasn't that expensive, a few dollars. I downloaded his book, and I'm going to read it. It's 309 pages, should only take me about, it usually takes me about an hour to hour and a half, depending on how well it's written, how it flows per 100 pages for me. I'm not the fastest reader in the world. So it'll probably be Monday or Tuesday before I get it all finished, but I'm going to read the book, give him the benefit of the doubt until I read the book. But just that interview alone by CBC News pretty much, tells me almost everything I need to know. He is a progressive. He's a Democrat. He ran for the Senate as a progressive Democrat. He speaks to a bunch of progressive anti-freedom groups throughout the country, including the Southern Poverty Law Center. So just anecdotally, I know what type of a man he is, and quite frankly, his interview didn't dissuade me of that opinion of him. I've heard of him before. I've seen him on the news before, but I had to go do some research just to refresh my memory about him. All right, I don't really want to get in the article about what Dems were asked about Obama offering intel Russia was okay. That's been in the news. The one I want to get to here before the end of the show is this anonymous sources. The anonymous sources of Washington Post and CNN fake news. Now, this is a 3-page article. I'm not going to be able to read it all to you. It's by Daniel Greenfield, and it was posted on front page mag.com, and that was posted today. Daniel Greenfield is a Shillman Journalism Fellow at the Freedom Center, writes about radical Islam and the left. He talks about the media fake news is everywhere. No, the new health care bill does not treat rape as pre-existing condition, and Republicans did not celebrate its passage with beer. The latest media outrage is driven by a Washington Post story about intelligence disclosures based on claims by anonymous sources. The Post's big hit piece was mainly based on anonymous sources, and we talked about this 2 days ago. In the latest hit piece, runs a quote from a former senior U.S. official who is close to the current administration officials. That's an anonymous source quoting hearsay from other anonymous sources. This isn't journalism. This is a joke, and this is what I've been talking about all week. It is a joke. It's a big joke being perpetrated on the American public, and there's too many people in the American public, because of their preconceived conclusions about Donald Trump. These fake fabricated news stories fit the narrative, and this is why they're running with it. And when you call them on it, they get all upset. And I'm sorry, they need to be called. It's no different, folks. This is no different from when I was talking to my buddy Alan Dave, and I was talking about Catholicism, which is not in the Bible, and they called me on it. They called me on my beliefs. And we need to be bold but loving to call people on what they believe in, whether it's a religious thing or whether it's a political thing or whatever it is. So last week, the Washington Post unveiled a story based on the private accounts of more than 30 officials in the White House. The fake news story falsely claimed that Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein threatened to resign. Rod had a simple answer when asked about the piece of fake news. No. And folks, just to let you know, if you go over and look at this link, everything they're talking about there has another link to it. What Rod Rosenstein, had a simple answer. There's a link to that. You can actually go over and look at that. That's actually Nation World News Service over there that's carrying that. So much for 30 anonymous sources and for the Washington Post credibility, but the media keeps shoveling out pieces based on anonymous sources and confirmed by anonymous sources while ignoring the disapprovals or disavowals by those public officials who were willing to go on record. The Comey memo story is based on, according to the New York Times, 2 people who read the memo, and then one of Mr. Comey's associates read parts of it to the Times reporter and his dog. You got to love some of the humor in this, folks. I mean, really. The supposed memo contradicted Comey's own testimony to Congress under oath. The Times has, and that was before, Comey's testimony was well before this supposed memo. The Times hasn't seen the memo. No one has seen the memo except the anonymous sources that may or may not exist. The media's fake news infrastructure relies heavily on anonymous sources, and anonymous sources are the media's way of saying, just trust us. The question is, why would anyone trust the media? Comey, fake news is popular on the left because it is convinced that he is a key to reversing their election defeat. And folks, I'm going to stop the reading. This is what it's all about. They cannot believe that Queen Hillary is not president of the United States. They still can't get over this. And I think not that psychiatrists and sociologists have spoken to everybody in the anti-Trump, whether they're never-Trumpers or they're the anti-freedom progressives out there that were supporting Hillary. But they do call this, in like a group think, it's Trump derangement syndrome. And you know, they talked about, if I remember right, wasn't this coined about Obama derangement syndrome after his first election? Of some folks on the right, they had to get him out of office. And folks, you're always going to have this. You're always going to have this small group, either in the Republican or the Democrat Party, that is just going to be on whatever their narrative is, like a bulldog with a bone. They're just going to use that bulldog tenacity, and they're going to hold on to it no matter what happens. And you're always going to have this. The only problem is when it happens in the Republican side of things, in the conservative side of things, the media doesn't report on it. So this is non-story because their boy or girl is in office or running for office. But when it happens the other way, they're all over it. This is factual. It's got to be true because it supports our narrative. And again, this is what I've been talking about all along, folks. They have a foregone conclusion in their minds, and these stories just feed into it, whether you can confirm them or not. And this is what I was telling this young man last night. If you can't confirm the anonymous source, and then you read a story that another anonymous source was talking to this anonymous source that's close to this anonymous source, that actually was sitting in the bathroom on the other side of the wall listening to the conversation, how do you confirm that? You can't. So if you can't confirm it, why are you running with the story as if it's factual? And they go on and talk about more things down through here, but I'm running out of time. And this is this is what's wrong with the press today. They're not taking their responsibility seriously. If you're reporting on an anonymous source and saying it's factual, just like this Professor Lynchman, he was trying to put facts into evidence that weren't there, that aren't there. His whole narrative, but the majority of his narrative was so factually incorrect that you can't trust it. So if you can't trust it, then what do? Well, you don't trust it. And again, I was telling this young man on Facebook that the source, I look and see what the sources are. If they, more times than not, and this is what makes me laugh about some of these news services that support the fake news narrative out there now, if they do put references in, it's to another blog article that doesn't have any references to back up what they're saying. So it's like, that's not a source. You know, when you read through that blog article and there's no new information, there's no sourcing it to say, well, this is correct or this isn't correct. So again, like I said, it's amazing to me. It is totally amazing to me how these people operate and how they want us to believe them. How they want us to believe them because of who they are. And quite frankly, folks, you can't trust the lamestream media. You've got to go research this stuff yourself. And I know it takes work. But you know what? Being a citizen of the United States is work. Actually doing your due diligence to make sure you're not being snookered is work. And you need to do that. Because if you don't do that, then we get in a situation like we are now where there's